story time into like legitimate lessons. So I have been playing Age of Empires 2 lately. And it's weird being a new player again because I played Dota for so long and there's a lot of stuff I take for granted now because I've played Dota for so long. But being an Age of Empires, which is a nostalgic trip, it's crazy. I have like no idea what's happening, right? Even though I've like got pretty good mechanics and like it's pretty common to say that if you get at a high level in one game, you can do it in another. And that's true, I think. But that's exactly why this has been a really good experience for me to like remember what it's like to be new, and now I've got some ideas to share with you guys. Which is that I know some stuff about Age of Empires because I've been watching some stuff. That's like, oh, if you see this unit, you should build this. And I know some basic stuff, right? If you see the enemy moving this way, you should go like be prepared to fight him or like dodge him, stuff like that. But I'm so new, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm not absorbing any information because I'm so caught up in like what's happening in the middle of the screen. I'm like trying to move my units. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to open a bot game here to show you guys a bit what I'm talking about relevant to Dota. Some stuff you'll learn over time just from playing. Like in Age of Empires, I had 10 people on horses, threw them at 10 camels. Apparently camels counter horses, slaughtered my horses. So you just learn stuff like that from playing. But then there's some stuff, like at the edge of the screen, the resources, things like that, I don't look at all because I am so absorbed in what I'm doing on the screen that I forget to look at that stuff. But a lot of the game, Dota 2 in particular, getting back to like what you guys actually play, Dota 2 is a lot about collecting information. And my experience coaching people and doing replays are that I'll see something and I'll point out, you probably shouldn't be here because there's like 3 people top coming to you. And they'll go, oh yeah, totally true, I should have left. Or I'll tell them like, oh, did you notice that this thing happened? And they'll go, oh, that means I should have done this, right? And I'll be like, yeah. So the thing is, it's like, you watch a lot of videos on Dota 2, maybe my videos, maybe like BSJ, Purge, whatever other videos are out there, and a lot of it is on game theory and what you should do as a response to certain things. But there's not a lot telling you how to collect that information, which is kind of what I want to tell you today. So like looking at this screen, there's like a whole bunch, right? This huge screen right here. And this is where you get caught up. And if you're a new player, of course this is what you're looking at. You're like looking at how to do last hits, how to like dodge the enemy. You're trying to like figure out the path here. You're like, I don't know, is there a way to go through here? You get really absorbed on this. And after a while, that becomes habit. And so if you've been playing Dota 2 for a while, and you never forced yourself to look at other parts of the screen for information, it is now hard to do that. So for example, number one that most people are aware of is the minimap. You should look at the minimap a lot. And people who are aware of this will try to think like, okay, so what can I do while playing here, and then try to come up with tricks to look at the minimap. But I actually think it should go the other way. You should play a game where your whole thing is to try to spend as much time looking at the minimap and occasionally look at the main screen as little as possible. Because that's how you like break habits. Like if you're not in the habit of looking at the minimap, then you can't just suddenly tell yourself to like, oh, I should look at it more. It's really hard. I mean, it's possible, but it's hard. And so I think it's really good to like spend some time forcing yourself to look here, because almost all the decision making happens on the minimap. It's its own video, but it's true. And so learning to look there is huge. In Age of Empires, which I've been playing, I don't look at the minimap at all. It's like in the middle of the screen, sometimes on the right. I'm not used to doing that at all. So it's really hard to absorb information from there. And then one game, some guy just built a castle right outside my base. Spent like a minute building it, which I could have stopped. But I didn't, because I didn't look at the minimap. I didn't collect the information. So I knew what to do, but I didn't get the chance to do it because I didn't see it. Same thing in Dota. You know, if the mid laner leaves to your lane, the enemy mid laner, they're probably ganking you. You should be careful. But many people don't see it. And then they get killed. They're like, oh my god, what's this invoker doing here? Then they report their teammate, you didn't call missing, blah, blah, blah. But at the highest level, you should have seen it yourself, actually. You shouldn't depend on people calling missing. It's still good to do. It's still like good practice. But it's important for you to absorb that information yourself. So the minimap's pretty obvious to people, but let's cover some others. Your own skills, you don't quite have to look at too much. Actually, After a while, you should learn what they do. The buffs can be useful to look at. But something that is good to look at the start of the game are like the starting armor, movement speed, and damage. And that's something I've also talked about in a separate video. I've like touched on all these topics, but we're putting them all here. And that's good to look at, especially at the start of the game, to figure out how the lane's going to go. This guy's got a ton of armor, ton of move speed. I'm never going to catch him. I'm not going to win trades against this guy. But look, it's this tiny number right here compared to this massive screen. So if you're new to the game or you aren't in the habit of looking at this stuff, it can be easy to miss this tiny bit of information, but it is so important to figure out how you're going to play the early lanes. Some other information. Your item slots. For your own items, you don't need to pay too much attention to that if you can have a feel for your own like cooldown stuff. But clicking on enemy heroes and checking their items, that's something I still have to work on. To know what they're building. Like I see what this Shakira's building. I know what this Razor's building. That can help you determine timings. This guy hasn't changed his items in a while. Probably getting close to his Blink Dagger. This guy has BKB components. We should be careful. The next team fight's going to be hard for us. You guys can make the decisions. I know you guys can do that. But it's about like absorbing the information yourself and looking around and clicking them to figure it out. Health and mana. Health is obvious because the health bar is like right here. But mana is one that I need to work on to see like this guy's got no mana. He can't fight. You can rush that guy. Things like that. Looking at death timers in the top of the screen, that one's a little more obvious. If you're not used to looking at it, then that's kind of a... I don't know. I think playing Dota enough, eventually you'll start to look at it yourself. The timer's a big one. It's a really small thing, but like a lot of your decisions are based on the time, when to stack, when to go get runes, things like that. You got to pay attention to that. The timer. No, I mean, I agree. You should still call out like someone is missing or something. But what about like when the laning stage ends, right? And you have like wards here or here. I mean, whose responsibility is it to call that the mid laner is walking from this jungle to the bottom? It's no one's strict responsibility. So in the lane, I agree with you. It is very important to still call out missing, because in the laning stage, that's when you have to spend the most time focused on what's on the screen here doing things. But as the game goes on and you're like in the jungle, moving around, that's when everyone should be like looking at the minimap themselves. And so, I don't know, you should still like call it out, but anytime you get surprised by someone showing up in your lane, part of it should be, it should feel like a failure of your own map awareness a bit. Because it takes like 10 to 15 seconds for anyone to move from lane to lane. But I mean, I still get surprised sometimes, right? Because everyone slips, but that's kind of the point. It's like seeing it happen, I think, is very important. What else? What else is good information to collect? Last hits, KDA, not that important, to be honest, because it's relative. Like, you can have an idea, like, I should probably have this amount of last hits 5 minutes into the lane. That's good. But then sometimes you're getting, like, tri-lane. So having, like, 20 last hits in a really bad lane is, like, okay. So that part's very relative. And it's more important to notice, like, the levels in the game and the relative gold, such as clicking the enemy and seeing what they have and then comparing it to yourself. So, like, strict last hits and strict kills, like the numbers, they don't tell the whole story. Getting the full idea is a bit more important. Your own gold, that's another big one. Looking at the costs of things. That's something like, I've gotten it abandoned because I've just been sitting in Fountain the whole time in this bot game, guys. So I no longer collect gold. But usually you have gold and you can see. So like when you queue something up, you can see how much you need for this item by pinging it. And if you control ping it, you can also see buyback. So that's something not a lot of people know, but knowing that number can be very important. How much you need to farm, how close you are to an item. But you may not be used to looking in this bottom right corner at this tiny number if you're new to Dota. But I think this is a big thing for a lot of people who have played by habit for a long time. And they get used to like looking here. The thing is, like when you start, you do have to play somewhat like focused on this screen here as you get used to the game. But after a while, you need to start looking at these like tiny spaces, this mini map here, this little number right here, well, not so much the last hits and the gold like we said, but like the time right here. These tiny parts of the screen actually need to be like 20% of your attention, 30% of your attention, however much depending on your role. It's very important to keep an eye on all of that, and it's not obvious if you've been playing for quite a while. So sometimes I die talking to a Twitch chat, reading what you guys say. And the reason is because like there'll be a mid laner here farming, and then suddenly they'll be gone. And I don't know which way they went. But if I had been paying attention to the minimap, I could have seen if they disappeared going top to this lane or bottom. Pretend I don't have this ward as well. Like maybe I just have like the one ward here. I don't know if they went left or bottom. And suddenly I'm not paying attention, and then suddenly they surprise me and I die. So that's kind of what I mean. So like, for example, if you weren't, I was looking at the minimap. I saw this courier. I get to kill this courier now. And that was a fraction of a second that I looked, and I happened to see it right before it went out of right out of this ward. So like constant minimap attention to see where everyone is running, where people are on the map. Like all of that's really big. And if you have that information, I think you guys know what to do because you've watched like these videos, you've watched tournaments, you've played the game. You know, I see this person running here, I should go there or I shouldn't go there, stuff like that. But I think a big difference is like a lot of people just don't collect the information. So how do you propose to practice these concepts? That's a good question. I think it's important to expect to lose a game. So you could go into unranked if you want. If you want to do it in ranked, I won't judge. But let's say map awareness. That's a really big one. You're going to enter the game, and the goal is not to play Jakiro well. It's not to play Treant well. It's not to lane well. It's not to like do anything else. The whole goal is to look at the minimap as much as possible and stare at it. And like, I would say the laning stage, you can kind of look at the main screen still, right? Let's say like first 5 to 10 minutes. But your whole mentality entering the game, you shouldn't care if you win or lose. You should just be like, I'm going to look at the minimap this game. I'm going to look at it so much. No one's going to know more about this minimap than I am. And I'm just going to stare at it. And you should lose like 5 games doing that. And I think it's important to break to the other side of the extreme because a lot of times we spend like 90% of our time looking at this main screen. And then like occasionally when we remember, we look down here. But I think you should try to make it the other way. And then you'll learn to balance it somewhere in the middle once you've experienced both sides and once you've realized, wow, it was really useful seeing this minimap so much. Or that like, oh, I didn't need to see it that much when I was doing whatever. But you have to experience the other side before you can get to it. And then you just do the same thing with time. You enter a game for like 10 games in a row and you go, I am not going to miss a single stack. You can miss them, but you should know it's coming up. So you should be like, I'm going to get this. I'm going to enter in. I'm going to see it. The minute change, I knew that minute was coming. You should never be surprised when it suddenly changes tonight and you're like, whoa, 5 minutes have passed. Whoa, how'd that happen? When I was improving, making the hard support guide, I entered like 50 games. The whole half pulling thing, all of that. The half pull at 117 and stack and all of that. If you miss that timing, the whole concept is broken. So I had to enter every single game telling myself, I am coming into this lane. I will stand here for like 30 seconds harass. Then I will walk over here. I will half pull at 117. And then I will come back here. And then I will come here and stack at 2 minutes. And that required me to look at the minimap, to look at the clock in the first 2 minutes so much to make sure I never missed the timing, to make sure I was here. Oh, it's like 103. I need to start running over, something like that. And I had to do that so many games in a row to make it a habit. And now it's a habit. And now I always look, and now I know, well, actually, it's slipping up. And that's why I'll be like, oh, I should have been blocking that hard camp. Now, because I've started to do other things, I've messed it up. But if I want to make it a habit again, it'll be easier because I spent the time doing it. And that's the same with minimap. Sometimes you'll like slip up on minimap awareness. Sometimes you'll slip on timing. And you have to like go back and like force yourself to work on it for a bit. But yeah, I think it takes an active decision. Like, this is all I'm doing this game. I don't care what else happens. I am doing this. Sometimes in my own games, what I experience is, I'll be playing the lane, and then the mid laner will tell me, the enemy mid Razor is coming down here with haste. I think that happened, right? If that information surprises me, it's like, okay, cool. I'm glad he told me. That's great. But I also wish I had known. Because it means, like, I didn't see the rune. I didn't see what rune spawned. And I didn't see that the mid laner got it and was coming down here. So it's like, it is good. That's why I'm saying, like earlier, we talked about it a bit. It's good to like communicate all that information. But I, as a player, also wish that it's like, okay, that was actually a shortcoming on my part. I totally missed that the Razor did that. What if I didn't have a mid laner who would share information? Then I'm just dead and I just fed Razor 2 kills. But if I had spent more attention to the minimap rather than, I don't know, watching my carry last hit or something, then I could have had a positive impact there myself. And I can't control if my teammates will share information, and all I can control is like how much I pay attention to the minimap or the timings and all that. That's why, like, I'll also tell my team, like, stack, get ready to stack, get ready for runes, things like that. They should be paying attention to it themselves, but it also helps to share that information because I am collecting that information, and so now I can tell my team. But if no one is collecting that information, then no one on the team can help you guys. So we can only control ourselves, and that's why I'm telling you guys you should do it. Same with why I ping like Roshan time, or I try to make myself do it, right? It's if no one else is doing it, then someone's got to do it, and it's very good to have. Yeah, dude, sticky notes on the monitor. I've got a lot of like, I don't know where they are now. I've got a lot of written down notes about like, here's what I should have done, blah, blah, blah. I used to like keep that all around and then like read it. I used to have like a notepad of like, here are all the things I need to remember to do this game. I need to remember to half pull at 117, stack at 2 minutes. Don't forget power runes. Don't forget Roche timer. It would just be like a list of reminder things to do every game. What's Warlock's armor? Speaking of collecting information, 2.7 armor. Now I can make an informed decision on whether I want to buy Blightstone or not. Look at that, guys. Coming into play already.